Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're going to be talking about the spell Hail of Thorns. Yeah. All right.
This is fine. I'm
Okay.
excited that I get to call the spell fine because it's a ranger spell. And normally I'm like, oh god, this spell sucks.
What level spell is this?
It's just a first. It's a little first level conjuration effect that I think is incredibly fine.
Good for you, Ranger.
You get them, buddy. You get some decent spells sometimes. I think it also might be.
Do? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this might be like a somewhat controversial opinion. I don't see a lot of people casting or taking Hail of Thorns all that often, but basically what happens is for a bonus action, the next time you would hit with a ranged weapon attack, you create a volley instead. A volley in addition. So what happens is, in addition to the normal effect of the attack, the target and everything within 5 feet of it makes a dex save, taking a d10 bonus piercing damage on a failed save. Half as much on a success. So you're always getting some bonus damage. It's not a ton of damage, and it does have higher level scaling. So if you use second level slot, you get an extra d10. D10s notably are one of the better dice when it comes to scaling. They're the second highest, so you can't really ask for that much more damage from it, but you don't really want to be spending second level spells doing this most of the time. This is kind of like a ranger smite in a lot of different ways. The fact that it hits a bunch of different creatures potentially makes it, I think, very akin to divine smite. And it being on ranger makes it notably unique and important there. So I think that this is, at its baseline, just a really handy option to have if you're not using your concentration, because it does take your concentration once you cast it, which is a bummer.
Now, if I recall correctly, it was Conjure Volley and Conjure something else. Barrage. Now, those were in lieu of your attack, correct?
Yes. This one specifically states,
all right, good,
in addition to the normal effect of the attack, which is really great for a whole bunch of reasons. Predominant one being if you build your character to do the sharpshooter thing, and you're getting a d10 plus 5 plus 10 plus a bunch of other garbage that you had onto it with like a magical longbow or something. You just get all of that still and don't have to replace it for a d10 area of effect damage. It's great at first level because it means like the first creature you're hitting with it is going to be taking the longbow damage plus the d10 piercing damage, and that's really great because dex mod plus damage is a lot at first level, and even like up through third and fourth, fifth level, even it's quite good.
And plus perhaps sharpshooter damage. That's you could be obliterating stuff.
Yeah, I mean, sharpshooter is an unfair feat entirely. Like, there's no justification for saying this is a fair feat. It's plus 10 damage. Like, numerically, it over triples your damage dice with a feat. That's pretty bananas. And a -5 to hit sounds like a sharp penalty until you play with it, and you're like, oh, that doesn't matter at all.
Matters more than you think if you're me.
Fair enough. At the end of the day, though, like, the Hail of Thorns goes in every ranger build you'd want it to if you don't use your concentration. That's a really crucial caveat, but for the most part, like, there's really very little harm in taking this. And I like that.
It doesn't keep going though. Once the effect happens, it's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's got a concentration up to a minute, but once you don't do hail after hail.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really wish they formatted these spells just to say the next time you hit with a ranged attack within the next minute. And then have it be like you can only have one Hail of Thorns effect up at a time, right? Give us a different mechanic than concentration, just so you could do this with Hunter's Mark or do this with other effects. Because there's a lot of the Smite spells I give a lot of shit because they have this caveat. You can't have other concentration effects going on if you also want to do this spell effect. In Hail of Thorns' case, it doesn't play that poorly with Ranger, just because this can be something where, oh crap, I dropped concentration, but I still want to do large area effect damage. I guess now I pull out Hail of Thorns, and you don't have a whole lot of other options, so you're not really missing out on that much if you are doing a Hunter's Mark build, which is most Rangers. Most Rangers probably should be doing Hunter's Mark build because it's how you do damage as a Ranger. But this is something that Slumbo competes with it. If you are like, oh, God, I don't want to do the Hunter's Mark Ranger. I've done it before. I'm so sick of bonus action Hunter's Marking attack. Hail of Thorns can help you kind of fulfill the toolboxy ranger fantasy. I think you're going to run out of spells very quickly that you find are interesting. But Hail of Thorns is one of them. So,
and did we already talk about how does it scale? I mean, I think you mentioned it, but what is it? How is it at higher levels?
So 1d10 per extra spell slot level means
that is pretty good. Yeah,
getting an extra 5-6-ish damage means going from a lot of HP thresholds, I think, are something a little bit underexplored in a DM's kit. I think it's a really interesting concept to understand. This is how much damage I can expect out of my players, so I can expect things within a certain HP bound to die. 5 is a low CR HP threshold. I often find for CR like 1/8 creatures or lower tend to die to 5 damage or less. So Hail of Thorns will kill things within that range. 10 HP or less is like a CR 1/4, CR 1/2, in very rare cases, CR 1/2, but for the most part, still lower CR things, but being able to kill them all at once is great. But even on top of that, just like this is going to be scaling slightly better than their hit dice are, but you have to remember that it's happening later. So the best case use for this scaling is probably whenever you get your 3rd level spell slots, and then anything past that, things are going to be outscaling this pretty wildly. At the same time, if you're not using your spell slots for anything else, 3d10 in an area of effect on top of just your regular actions, right? Because you're not really foregoing anything to do it. You're still getting your regular longbow shots in. You're still getting your regular crossbow shots in or whatever. You're pretty happy. If you're like a dual wielding crossbows with the crossbow expert feat, this is going to be a lot harder to use. But it's, again, if you're going against like a specifically large groups of enemies and normally you're the single target damage dealer that just shoots like Van Helsing's one big werewolf, now you have a tool in your toolbox to be like, okay, the 12 little baby werewolves all get lit up.
Nice. All right.
You also get you get a particularly cool fantasy if you do the Van Helsing thing where you just flavor it as just like a rapid fire, just volley of crossbow bolts flying out as the Hail of Thorns. That could be super cool. Just saying.
Taking out werewolf families.
There was a campaign I was playing in a very long time ago. I don't get to do that often. But there was a big controversial moment where my dwarf character threw a werewolf child into a giant bonfire. And I'm like, it's a monster. It's a werewolf. And they're like, it's a baby. And I'm like, but it's a baby werewolf. It was great. It was, in hindsight, definitely evil, but it was funny. And I get a lot of kicks out of that anyway. But yeah.
Good times.
Good times.
All right. You got a Sam score for this one?
I think this is perfectly fine. 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Very reasonable spell.
I'll bump it up to a 4 because Rangers need something.
Rangers need some 3 out of 5s, if I'm going to be honest.
All right. Well, that was Hail of Thorns. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.